Today we're going to talk about the surprising power of detaching from the outcomes. Parents, pay attention. Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Jenkins, a child and family psychologist, and I know that frustration, anger, resentment, all of those come from being too attached to the outcomes. Pay attention, I'll tell you what I mean. You've felt them, right? Those feelings that I just mentioned, frustration, anger, resentment. Why would we ever feel frustrated, angry, or resentful as a parent? Think about it. It's because what's happening out here with my kids is not what I want it to be. It's not what I expect. It doesn't match the outcome that I was hoping for. Can you relate to this? Well, I call these indicator feelings because what it indicates is not what most people think. When I feel frustrated, I'm likely to think that something over there, something outside of me, needs to change. That's the deception. When I feel frustrated, angry, or resentful, it means that something in here needs to change. Or more accurately, something in here. Those feelings indicate that something is out of whack. And usually it's something that you want to have happen that's not actually happening. Or something you don't want to have happen that is actually happening. Like, you want your kids to do their homework and be responsible, but they're not doing that. Or you don't want your kids hanging out with those friends who are not a good influence, or experimenting with substances, but they are. So the frustration comes because we're so attached to those particular outcomes, but we also know that we can't actually control those outcomes. Let's go there for a minute. Control. There's a model that I teach in all of my parent coaching and in the seminars that we do on this topic that helps us to understand the interplay between control and maturity. And I use a visual model. In fact, I got you covered on this. The visual model that I'll be referring to is available to you for free. You can just go download it. Go to the URL on the screen, drpauljenkins.com/stages. I got you covered. I'll put it right in your inbox so that you can refer to that as we're having this conversation. When you get your model, you'll see that control gets put up against maturity. Let me talk about control first. Control means control over our own life. And it goes from 0 to 100%. You can have all the control or none of the control or somewhere in between. Now, what about maturity? Maturity is on the bottom of that graph. And it starts with immature, clear over there on the left side, and it moves over through very mature on the right side. Like age, for example. When you're first born, how much control do you have over your own life? Yeah, hardly any. You can make a big noise, a big stink, that's about it. As you get older, you gain more control. See, when your maturity increases, so does your control. And that's what the model describes. I've given you just a brief introduction to it. Go get your copy, drpauljenkins.com/stages. And then let's use this model as we think through our own frustration, anger, and resentment because we're attached to outcomes we don't control. You'll notice that your control as a parent gets smaller as the control of your children increases. And when they get older, they'll take control whether we want to share it with them or not. Probably already proven that to you. So let's be aware of how control and maturity work together, and then we'll use that as a tool to address our own frustration, anger, and resentment. Here's the bottom line. You have to focus on things that you personally control. That's the key. Frustration, anger, and resentment only happen when we see outcomes that are not to our liking and we have no control over it. Can you see it? Here's why it's so important to detach from the outcomes. Somebody has to be attached to the outcomes. If it's you, it's not your kids. Think about what I'm saying. If it's you, it's not them. And if they are not attached to the outcomes, they're not going to do anything to bring about those outcomes. That's why it's so important for us to focus on what we can control and detach from the outcomes that are outside of our control. I am not asking you to detach from your kids. In fact, I want you to stay really connected to them, okay? What I am asking you to detach from is the specifics around what they do or how they act or what their behaviors are. We'll simply tie in appropriate consequences, but our attachment is not there. It puts you in a position where as a parent you can be like, well, things could turn out this way or things could turn out that way. I'm okay either way. This is simple. Simple and easy are not the same thing. Let me give you 3 specific strategies that you can apply that I think might make this a little easier. Here's the first one. Keep smiling. When parents are smiling, kids are thinking. When you're smiling, your kids don't think that you're attached to the outcome because you seem good already. It also weirds them out a little bit. They get nervous when their parents are smiling because they think, wait, what do they know that I don't know? And I've got this basic tenet that I share in all of my parent coaching. We want to get our kids to think, not fight. Your smiling puts your kids in a position where they're going to be doing more thinking and less fighting. Do you love that? Let's add one little strategy to that as well. While you're smiling, practice saying, okay. Simple word. Practice saying it. You smile and you simply say, okay. Again, that shows a detachment from the outcome and it gets your kids to think. Here's the second strategy. Buy some time. A lot of times as parents, we get put on the spot and it's like our kids are pushing us to give them an answer right now. In fact, one of the things that I like to say to my kids when they're pushing me is, do you want my right now answer or do you want my I've thought about it answer? And then I smile, okay? And I'm ready to accept whatever they say. Well, tell me right now, because the right now answer is always no, right? That's the right now answer. Well, they're a little afraid because, well, if you think about it, you might say no. Yeah, but I might say yes too. So if you give me time to think about it, we're going to be good. As parents, we get to buy some time. Don't feel like you have to respond immediately, but just put a little buffer in there. You can always say, you know what, I'm going to get back to you about this. Or give me a minute to think about this, will you? Those are some ways that you can buy some time. I would also suggest that you do not do this as a manipulation. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Sometimes we get so attached to the outcome that we're trying to find whatever way we can to make sure that that's the outcome. Whatever it is we want our kids to do or whatever it is we want them to stop doing, we have to make sure that it happens. Let's just back off from that. As you're buying time, what I want you to do is just go inside, okay? Get into your own heart and head and ask yourself, can I just detach from this outcome a little bit? You'll make some good choices as a parent about what kind of consequences are appropriate based on whatever it is that they choose. But we're going to do this from a place of detachment from the outcome. Hey, whatever you choose to do, I'm good with it. I'll roll with it. We can handle it. These are the thoughts that you're having that put you in a position of being a little more detached from the outcome. It's so powerful. You know, I have clients all the time who are trying to get a different outcome so hard that it's almost impossible that it would ever happen. It's kind of like holding a stick of butter. If you can picture that, just a stick of butter in your hot hand, and if you squeeze it too tightly, you're going to lose it. Squeak. But if you cradle it nice and gently, this is the idea of detaching from the outcome. Back off a little bit. Lighten your grip. I promise you're going to get better results if you will detach from your need to have them. All right, I got one more strategy for you, and it goes right back to what I referred to earlier with this model. Again, you can get your copy at drpauljenkins.com/stages. I'll put it right in your inbox. In the model, we divide maturity. Instead of age, we think of stage. Okay, so there's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Just 3 chunks of maturity. Stage 1 is the least mature. Stage 3 is the most mature. And your level of control or intervention changes depending on which stage your kids are in, okay? 1, 2, or 3. Without going into all the details about what those 3 stages are, stage 1 is basically the least mature, and this is where you don't get any cooperation, there's tantrums, there's defiance, there's resistance, sometimes there's disrespect, there's yelling and screaming. Sound familiar? And this is what most parents are concerned about when they reach out for some coaching or some help with their parenting. If your kids are in stage 1, you have to focus not on what they're doing, but on what you are doing. Because we have to pick something that doesn't require their cooperation. That requires a shift in our thinking. It's really tempting to focus on what they need to do, what they need to change, but they're not cooperating with you on stage 1. So that important shift back to what can I control is what's going to give you power as a parent. Let me give you an example of what I mean. One of the dads that I was coaching was so frustrated that his kids were just watching TV all the time instead of doing their homework or their chores around the house. I know, that probably never happens at your place. But it was at his. And he was frustrated because his kids were on stage 1. They were refusing to cooperate. They were being all defiant and nasty about it. And he kept asking them to please just cooperate. Well, it's up to them whether they cooperate or not. He had told them, look, you can watch TV after your homework and your chores are done. Sounds reasonable, right? But his kids weren't cooperating with that. And he expressed his frustration to me. He's like, Dr. Paul, they just keep doing it. I'm so frustrated that they just won't cooperate when I give them these parameters or these consequences. Okay, do the shift. We're going to get off of what the kids are refusing to do and onto what he can do with or without their cooperation. It turns out this dad was a welder. And when he put his mind to it, he was able to come up with an idea that I thought was brilliant. See, the problem is the kids aren't cooperating. What can I do that doesn't require their cooperation? He put his brilliant welding skills to use as he built a lockbox out of metal. It was about this big, and it had a power strip inside of it. It had a lid that would close with little slots for the cords to go through. Can you kind of picture what I'm talking about? He would plug in the cords, close the lid so the cords cannot be removed now, and it locks. Brilliant. So he can open it up with the key and either turn the power strip on or off and then lock it. Now he controls whether the TV is on or off. I thought it was brilliant. Not so much because of the innovation, although that was really cool, but because he shifted his focus from what my kids are not cooperating with to, okay, what can I do that doesn't require cooperation? Brilliant. And that allowed him to detach from the outcomes and just say, hey kids, here's what I'm asking you to do. You can do it or not do it. And then secretly in his own mind, he's like, and I got it covered either way. Do you see how powerful that could be? And it starts with detaching from the outcomes. Hopefully you found some of that helpful. Really, you do want to get a copy of this model, drpauljenkins.com/stages. I'll put it in your inbox, and that way you can have a visual reference to what we've talked about here today. You've got this, and we've got you.